Last week I have been speaking about faith and confidence as an important element for our practice, because we can't simply throw off old habitual structures without faith in practice, which means in that context, without faith in impermanence, in arising and ceasing. That's considered the core insight in the Buddha's practice, to see arising and ceasing so deeply that the mind lets go. Because at some point, we have to let go of something. And we need to give in to what is understood in the practice, and to really allow the wisdom and insight to ripple out through our being and through our life, by fully responding to what calls us as true and significant. And that can be very scary, even we have really seen it deeply, but to really respond to it and live from that place can be indeed scary. I remember, when I felt the calling becoming more pronounced, that I should try to be a nun, I got very scared, I wanted to turn back, and I got married very quickly and very stupidly, because it wasn't it wasn't a good decision I've made with the person, who came along. And then in a way, that marriage delivered me to the monastery quicker than without. So it was a funny kind of a thing. But I felt the truth and significance. I felt the calling through the presence of my teacher, Ajahn Buddhadasa, and I felt that would be good for me. But I was scared. I was scared to really let go into that calling. But then I did it, and I thought I'm gonna just try it, for 1-2 years or something. And here I am still doing it. So staying connected with what calls us as true and significant at this time now, when there's so much turmoil, is very much needed. And, and as always, taking a larger perspective, a long-term view is helpful, can really protect us, and is empowering. Because if we take the long-term view, either evolutionary history, really, really deep time, or at least history, of what's been happening in our countries, something loosens up, something relaxes in us, a little bit at least. And, and when I look at what's going on in that way, what I start to understand is that, the current president and his associates are actors in a much larger play, and they are not the author of this play. They are not the playwrights, but they are rather actors, and they have been hijacked, into those roles by the ethical quality of their heart minds. And, in a context of living a life in attunement with Earth, they are not really interested or willing. They are not yet there, they are not yet mature to that degree that they understand that their own benefit and the benefit of the whole are of the same order. That's, considered a immature stance, and we can't really force people into maturity. They have to learn that by themselves. In the same, way how we got to where we are, not that we are super mature, but at least, we are willing to be being taught. Because I think anyone who continues to return to those Wednesday teachings is willing to be taught by Earth and by Earth awareness, because otherwise you would rather do something else. That doesn't mean, that we are really good at it, but we are doing what we can to attune and to being taught by life, being taught by what's happening. And what I think all of us noticing is that our appreciation, for the planet as a living, self-regulating, intelligent, living system or being, or whatever you want to call it, becomes more and more clear, I think. There's less and less doubt that there is actually a process going on, and we can, by the very fact, that we have these earth bodies, we can connect to it if we intentionally open ourselves in this way. Because this system is responsive and it sustains life since a very, very long time. And what we also know is that this intelligent system now is calling modernity to an end. A time in history which was characterized by beliefs of limitless growth and limitless expansion and human supremacy and individualism. So all of that, is now being stopped by the limitations of the biosphere, and that worldview, that house of modernity, is crumbling and falling apart. And we all sense it, we all can witness it, we all are unsettled by it, and that's what brings us here. The willingness to attend to that process inside of our own bodies, because we all kind of feel it, And, if we take the long-term view and see what's happening as the necessary and unavoidable ending of modernity, then, that is really helpful, I think. Nobody has done anything wrong, but this is just the way it is. There are these paradigms, these worldviews, they arise and cease. And we ourselves have been brought up in that inside of modernity. And all of us, we seem to sense that something new wants to be born. And we wanna support that, because that's the way to go. To go back to a golden age is not an option if you really investigate it. And then often, people, if they really have a lot of fear of going with the flow, of going with the change, they want to go back to some very crazy golden age, or becoming, there's this movement here in America where people think, they're going to be brought up into heaven. I think it's called rapture. So all these really quite childish escape routes, which never have worked and never will work. But the only things which really work is that we are going into the process and allowing our dormant evolutionary potential to be called forth, and that's called forth through the struggle of maturing. Knowing that we have the potential, we can swim, we can move with this. And if the water is high enough, we need to start swimming, and we can do it. I really like that example by Vanessa Andreotti. She says it's in Brazil they have that saying, if the water is only up to the ankles, you still can wade, but if the water is up to the bum, you just have to swim. And the water is rising. So, trusting that we can swim, we can do this. And how can we, how can we support the coming forth, of this dormant potential, this evolutionary potential we all carry? First of all, we need the trust that we can swim. If the water is up to the bum, we can swim. And then also, having these practices where we are attuning with the aliveness of the biosphere through attuning to the aliveness of our own bodies, the energy bodies. That's basically our communication line into that bigger system, which has been knowing what to do for a very, very long time, for over 4 billion years. It's a trustworthy system. So, our bodies, our gut are like an antenna for recognizing and receiving this information from the earth, what to do next as a species, but also as individuals. It's like an umbilical cord to the earth. This direct experience of being alive. And when we encounter the flood, knowing that we can swim. And that we can learn on the job, basically, together. Because that's how it always has happened. And we need to stay together in the struggle, and and taking in with whom we are swimming together. Just as our forebears have done, because otherwise we wouldn't be here today. They have to learn on the job. Because that potential is dormant in us. It needs to just be called forth through necessity, really. And that, it needs a lot of trust. And that's like not so easy sometimes to live from that place. But if we remember, that we are together in this, it can really help. Because if we are kind of down, and if we are fearful, then there's others around us who are okay and feel ready and feel connected, and then it changes again. And in this way, we can just help each other, encourage each other. And that's as good as it gets, I think. It's pretty good. To be really conscious at that edge. So let's go into the meditation more fully, and connecting with the body, the energy body. Just the vibration, the humming of the aliveness of the body. This body, which is kept alive through eating, drinking, and breathing, and other things. And is in constant exchange with the biosphere, and through that, partakes in the aliveness of the biosphere, which has arisen out of the universe. It's such an awesome vastness we are part of. And whatever we are bringing today, whatever the emotional state is, the feeling tone, holding that within that aliveness, which goes beyond the edge of the skin of the body we are sitting in. And just, gently breathing into that, any tension which is there, any feeling of nausea or contraction or however it presents right now. Just breathing with that. And allowing it to be as it is. And whenever the mind, wanders off into thinking about something, just coming back to directly sensing aliveness and energy body. And, any tension, any pain, just allowing it to drop down, go down into the soil underneath where we are sitting. Any doubt, and we are just, this is where we are right now. And yes, there is something is dying, something is ending, but also something new is being born. It's both happening at the same time. And being able to hold that is a paradox. If you're completely, mesmerized by all of the tragic things which are going on, kind of losing ourselves in that, then we are missing something. So the skill is that the middle path between, yes, there is a lot which is really bad, which is really painful, which shouldn't be like this, but it is like this. And we have to work from inside the times we are in right now. It's the wisdom of no escape. We haven't chosen, to be, I haven't chosen to be in a time like that when I came to America, my God. But here I am right now, and that's what's happening. And it's tragic that, humankind repeats those patterns again and again and again. That's what's called samsara. And there is two kinds of suffering. The suffering which leads us in circles, and the suffering, if we are really taking advantage of the suffering and learn from it, digest it, metabolize it, and mature and bring forth our potential in the meeting of that suffering. That's the choice we have, and that we can totally do whatever happens. And that's the good news. And the earth is calling our attention. The earth is calling us to understand that we are not separate, and that this worldview, of modernity, which is based on this separability, that it is dying. It has run its course. And there's the people who are open to that kind of understanding. And there's people who are really afraid of that and turning away and trying to go back into the past. And, it's not going to work out. It's a phase, which will take some time, but it will end because it's not in accordance with reality. So, keeping connected with that which is true and significant, with that which we know, in the depths of our heart. That's now what we can do, and we can do it together. For our own benefit and for the benefit of future generations. We're sensing into this aliveness, which is the way, how the biosphere speaks without words, speaks to our aliveness in the bodies. And we are constantly, in communication through eating, drinking, breathing, and even, consciously being that aliveness now in the meditation. Pulling out all of the stops of thinking about something else and really sitting in that aliveness and being rewired, quote unquote. Trusting that we can swim. And, getting ready by that, by building the trust, by familiarizing ourselves with that aliveness. By cultivating the connection. Then even if we are triggered, we can come back to it. That's what the word for meditation in, for example, in Bali is bhavana. And it's also in Thai like that, that simply means to cultivate. And in Tibetan, it's gom, means to cultivate. To cultivate that connection through, and a cultivation affords a commitment, You cannot cultivate any skill without putting in the time it takes to develop it. And as we are doing this, all of the unfinished business needs to be digested and metabolized. And that's, what's difficult for all of us, for me too. Then we need that faith, that trust. That's how it works. We are opening ourselves more and more to this aliveness. And all of the bottlenecks and all of the obstacles, they are the path. It's where we meet the unfinished business. And then we stay with that, with a lot of kindness and gentleness, grounding, direct sensing, and that willingness to be with the discomfort. And it brings about a certain sobriety. This is what it is at the end of a paradigm. It's not fun on one level, but it's also very inspiring on another level. That we can help with that. It gives us a sense of purpose, I think. Consciously growing into that increased maturity as being part of a living, intelligent earth at this time in history where this is what's asked of us. It's like going to school. A good schooling system is all about, unlocking the potential of the young person. And we are young persons, in an evolutionary sense. And I think we can feel that now, how young we are. Feeling really small. Just feeling that, just sensing into that. Yes, we are small, we are conditioned inside of a system which is all about me as an individual and how I can get something more. And it's not our personal failure or anyone's failure. This is just how evolution works. And this humbling effect, which is really helpful actually for getting us ready for what we need to do. It really helps us to open up the defenses. Because it is a lot, which we need to digest. It is a lot. That's why we need to slow down. Because it needs to be done, really thoroughly, one bite at a time. We can't just do it half-heartedly. It needs to be done fully. Otherwise, we're going to throw up again. And I really like those 3 slogans by Vanessa Andreotti. She says, doing this work without throwing up, without throwing a tantrum, and without throwing in the towel. That's the work. It's hard. Going slow enough that we don't throw up. Going gentle enough that we don't throw a tantrum. And taking care of ourselves, we don't throw in the towel. And trusting the intelligence of the process. And we can call into that process. We can ask for guidance. We can pray. I pray every morning. I bow to the earth and I bow to the Buddha. And I ask for guidance. How can I help? How should I show up? So really allowing ourselves to be touched by this aliveness, this vibrancy. And with the out breath relaxing into the spaciousness, which doesn't end at the walls of the room. And sitting as that aliveness. Is not watching the aliveness, but directly experiencing it. Being it. There's no distance, no separation. It's a felt presence. We are that aliveness. Like everyone else. and everything else, an expression of that aliveness. Which always knows what to do. And recognizing ourselves as that life force, as that aliveness. We are just simply an expression of that. And making more and more space for that aliveness to act through us. Letting go of the defenses, the fears, by metabolizing them, not by suppressing them or pretending they are not there, but by metabolizing them. And the more we can metabolize those fears and defenses, the more we can live our lives as a direct expression of that aliveness, depending on our situation, our skills, where we live, our age, so many different factors. We all express it differently. And it's that, truth and significance which leads the way. It's an intuitive knowing. With the body, with the gut, with the chitta, the heart mind. And spreading out the awareness throughout the whole body, not getting stuck anywhere, and spreading it out a little bit beyond the body. That's the way how we resonate with the aliveness of the biosphere. Attune, dial in, We just need to open the line. By intentionally attuning and opening to it. With a spirit of serving, future generations, and being a good ancestor. As good as we can at these times when there's so much uncertainty. And then serving that which wants to be born, even we don't know what it is. We can't yet imagine it because we are not sufficiently changed yet to be able to imagine differently. We're just maturing out of modernity, and that's hard enough. But we got that. And we can say yes, we can say yes, I want to stop that which is not working. I don't want to waste my time with trying to go back to the golden past, which never existed in the first place. Or trying to go to God in the sky or go to Mars or go somewhere else. No, I'm going to stay here and I'm going to dig in, I'm being with the messiness of the process, because these bodies of ours, they are from this planet, they are earth bodies, there is no other place to go. All else is just an escape, it's delusion. Even, millions of people might believe it, doesn't mean anything. Other than there's a lot of fear. And today I've brought a poem again. And it's maybe not really a poem, but it's the words of the Brazilian educator Rubem Alves. And he says, "Let us plant dates, even though we who plant them will never eat them. We must live by the love of what we will never see. That is the secret discipline. It is the refusal to let our creative act be dissolved away by our need for immediate sense experience. A struggled commitment to the future of our grandchildren. A struggled commitment to the future of our grandchildren. Let us plant dates, even though we who plant them will never eat them. We must live by the love of what we will never see. That is the secret discipline. It is the refusal to let our creative act be dissolved away by our need for immediate sense experience. A struggled commitment to the future of our grandchildren. Without throwing up, without throwing a tantrum, and without throwing in the towel. To be in that struggle, to be in that messiness, and making space for that. There's nobody to blame. But there's a lot to digest. And a lot of experience, which we have inherited from our forebears. That this is possible to get through very difficult bottlenecks. It has happened many times. And now it's happening again. And we are all together in this. So as we're coming to an end, I do a short chant, sharing of blessings of our work with all sentient beings. May you have very good blessing. May all the devas protect you. By the power of all the Buddhas, may you ever be well. May you have very good blessing. May all the devas protect you. By the power of all the Dhamma, may you ever be well. May you have very good blessing. May all the devas protect you. By the power of all the Sangha, may you ever be well.